Hi, everybody, and welcome to Title II Tuesday, brought to you by the Center for Inclusive Teaching and Learning here at UWSP. In the first video this week, I showed you how to quickly remediate alternative text for simple images used in your course. In this video, we'll look at how to make complex images accessible to your students. Alt text is needed for more than just pictures. Graphs, charts, maps, infographics, and images of text all require descriptive alternative text. But because these images often contain a lot of information, the 120 character restraint for alt tags is often not sufficient. The strategy for complex images begins with identifying whether it's permissible to list the image as decorative. If the information presented in the image is fully described in the text, such that a visually impaired individual who is unaware of the presence of the image will miss nothing of relevance, you can label the image as decorative. If the image is not decorative, that is, if it presents some novel information not available elsewhere in what you're providing to the students, there are three basic ways to make complex images accessible, and each of them involves conveying the key information in the image in the text somewhere. The first option is to describe the image in the body of the text. This is the easiest way to handle complex images. Just provide a text version of the information you're conveying in the image in the body of the text on the page. Doing this renders the image as decorative. Or, if you want, you can include alt text that refers the user back to the text on the page, something like images described in line in document body. Next, you can provide a long description link to another page. Images may need a longer description than pages they appear on can contain. Remember that each page should be below 3,000 words. This is likely to be the case for infographics or highly complex graphs. These remediations can be lengthy, since the entire purpose of an infographic is to succinctly convey complex information to sighted folks. You can solve this problem by providing a long description link below the image. The long description links to another page in Canvas or on the web, with text describing the informational content of the image, which again is likely to be quite complex when rendered verbally. If you opt for this solution, the new page should include a link back to the original page. Finally, you can make use of figure/figure caption tags in the HTML for your page. This is more complex than other mechanisms, but is completely doable, and I'll show you how. Before we get started with all of that, just a quick note about some of the more common types of complex images that you encounter that should help you quickly sort through how to best deal with them. First, charts and graphs. To write alt text for charts and graphs, include the chart type, for example, line graph, bar graph, pie chart, the type of data that the chart displays, and a summary of the main trend in the chart. Some graphs can use just alt text, but more complex charts or graphs will need more detailed descriptions or a long description page and figure caption. Maps and infographics. Foremost in dealing with maps and infographics is to provide an alternative text summary of the information presented in the figure. You should present a more complete summary in the page text or in a figure caption. For the more complex images, you should use a separate Canvas page and make sure that the hierarchical headings and bullet points are used as necessary. Images of text. When an image shows text, the alt text should say exactly what the image says. Think of it as copying the words. If there are a lot of words, you might need a long description page or a figure caption. Scanned photocopies of text or journal articles. All those worn out articles that you've been copying and marking up repeatedly are a real problem for making things accessible to everyone. Think about those papers that have been photocopied so many times. They're blurry, or they've got handwritten notes all over them. These are not appropriate file types for verbal content. Rather than trying to remediate these, it is often easier to begin with a more accessible version of the document. Finding a digital version online that's already accessible means you don't have to fix the old inaccessible one. So contact the library or the publisher for a modern digital copy. If this isn't an option, you can use optical character recognition to convert papers scanned as images into digital text that people with disabilities can use. Contact CITL if you need help with the OCR. Then we'll just kick the can down the road and worry about the PDFs later. So, on to remediation demonstrations. In my sandbox, I've loaded a number of images of varying complexity to show you different ways you can deal with alt text for complex images and making these images accessible. Note that I'm working directly in the page that contains these images. First, we have a moderately complex infographic from Adkins Jablonski et al. 2021, showing how to deal with flattening the curve for COVID-19. This contains a lot of text. This infographic is useful and engaging for sighted folks, but I can render all of the information content in this infographic verbally just by typing it on the page. In this case, I'm pasting the complex verbal description for the image I got from Microsoft Copilot. If I wanted to, I could use alt text indicating that this is an infographic on flattening the transmission curve for COVID-19 with a notation that it's fully described in the text of the page. But I'm going to mark it as decorative because a person using a screen reader would miss nothing now that I've got the information on the page if they were unaware of the image. Next, we have a relatively straightforward graph showing a positive correlation of 0.96 between a person's weight and the girth of their chest. This is kind of a crappy graph because it doesn't indicate units, but we'll assume that it does, and that weight is in pounds and that chest girth is in inches. We can represent what this graph shows us and what's important about it within the 120 character limit. So we're just using regular alt text to identify this image. Next, I have a complex process diagram for software development. This is something that will take more than 120 characters to describe, and I've decided that I'm going to do it with a figure caption. It's still something that will fit within the boundaries of a single page, but it's more complex than alt text can show us. So to deal with images like this and to create a figure caption, you have to be willing to edit some HTML. The complete instructions for this can be found in the BSRG weeks 8 and 9, but I'll show you how to do it. First, you have to access the HTML code through the link below the entry interface in the Rich Content Editor. That's the little link that shows greater than / less than. Okay? When you enter that, you see the HTML code for your Canvas item. We're going to use the basic HTML that you see in the caption below this video, indicating that there's a figure that contains an image with an image path and a figure caption. I'm scrolling down to the third image on my page. I get that there's a lot of HTML here and that it all looks like a bunch of gobbledygook to most folks, but the key is recognizing that there's a pattern. You'll see greater than IMG, which is always where an image starts. So we're going to go to the third greater than IMG on the page. The first thing I'm going to do is add greater than figure less than. This tag is coming right before the image tag in the HTML. Canvas will automatically provide the indicator of the end of the figure, but we don't want it here. So we're just going to delete it, but we'll type it in at the end of our actual figure. The SRC component after the greater than IMG points to the specific image file that appears on your page. Then there is an alt equals followed by the alternative text. In this case, you see that the default alt text, which is the file name, is present. I'm going to change this here to alt equals, quote, schematic flowchart of software development described fully in figure caption, end quote, so that the alt text both gives a brief description and directs users of screen readers to where the goodies are. Then we're going to go to the closing of the image file, which is the / less than sign. After the image file, we want to insert directions for a figure caption. So we're going to insert greater than fig caption less than. Again, Canvas will automatically insert the termination code to show the end of the caption. In this case, we're just fine with where it is. So we want to go between the start, which is the fig caption part, and the slash fig caption part, which is the termination sequence. And between them, we want to insert the text of the figure caption. This is lengthy, and I'm just pasting in the output that I got from Microsoft Copilot's analysis of this image. Now, I need to place the closing code for the whole figure, which includes the image and the figure caption, by going to the close of the caption and after it typing greater than slash figure less than. If we switch back to the page view using the HTML link below the Rich Content Editor, you can see how this affected the page. And with luck, we have a figure caption below our figure. Excellent. Finally, we have a super complex infographic on understanding global change. For this figure, I'm going to refer students to a long description page in Canvas. I start by typing in the text that I will hyperlink to the long description page. Then, I go to my home page and create a long description page in my module. In that page, I enter the text describing the image, which I got from Microsoft Copilot, then edited. After I paste the text in, I'm making sure that I've used appropriate heading structures on the page since the text is longer than a paragraph. At the bottom of the text, I provide a link back to the original page that houses the infographic. On that original page, I make sure that I link the long description page to the text that I provided earlier. Okay, those are the different ways that we can deal with complex images. Remember that complex images require complex remediation to make them accessible to all students. Whatever key information students need to obtain from an image must be available in a textual summary somewhere, whether it's in the text on the page, on a separate page, or in a figure caption. And that's this week's Title II tip, brought to you by the Center for Inclusive Teaching and Learning here at UWSP. Remember, at CITL, we offer support for course design, learning activities, assessment, pedagogy, and accessibility. Visit our website to schedule a consultation today.